All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Sorry, wasn't sure if my camera is recording. Welcome back to the Scenic Route Astrology. My name is Makayla. I'm an evolutionary and predictive astrologer and also tarot reader. That's something new I've been offering for the last few months. I have a couple of announcements to let you know in the beginning. I want to get it out of the way, and then we're going to dive into the Capricorn full moon that's on July 3rd. So, first things first is I want to take a moment to dedicate the next, few weeks of my work deeply to my grandfather who just had passed away on this past Monday, which was June 26th. He passed away on the moon's day. The moon is ruled the moon rules Mondays. Sorry, I'm having a hard time. And he was a Cancer, so his birthday was in July. So he passed a few weeks before that. He was 82, so he was entering his Uranus opposition, and the astrology was pretty accurate, pretty on point. And he was like my father to me, and he raised me, since I was 10 years old. So he was a very influential person in my life, and his funeral actually is tomorrow on the full moon. It's very synchronistic. It's very literal with the astrology. And so yeah, so I'm going to be finishing this moon course that I've been doing for 2 years and dedicating it to him because with his passing, I've actually had the opportunity to get a lot more insight and downloads over the archetype of the moon and also like our evolution and our purpose here on Earth and just timing as well overall. And I was holding his hand during his last breaths as well. And for many of you, if you don't know, I'm also a trained psychic and medium. I was trained by Tom Jacobs, who is also an evolutionary astrologer and channel and medium. I was trained by the best, absolutely the best. And that actually helped me prepare for this exact moment and time that I'm experiencing as well as my family is experiencing. And so there's a lot more deeper layers into that. So I actually feel way empowered and more empowered to bring some of that teaching and the knowledge that I have onto YouTube and start sharing it with other people so we can start understanding the other side, right? The other dimensions, the other realms, connecting to our own guides, and then also connecting to past loved ones and answering the questions about what happens, afterwards, afterlife, and also about reincarnation and all these deep layers that is a part of evolutionary astrology and a part of spirituality and this whole esoteric realm that we're in. So wanted to say that. The second thing I wanted to tell you all is that I am going to be speaking at the Astro Bash Astrology Retreat in Borrego Springs, California. It is at the end of September, early October. I believe it's that last week. The information will be on my website. You can also see it on my Instagram. I made a post there. And I'm going to be doing a lecture on the moon in the 12 archetypes. And I want to bring a very intimate approach to understanding what your moon sign placement means and how it's actually really important that we connect to the moon sign in our chart. And we understand other people's moon signs as well as we shift into the age of Aquarius, because Cancer forms an in conjunction. It's a blind spot to what Pluto is going to be bringing up. And if we're not deeply connected into our emotional space and the lens of our ego and connected to who we are deeply as an emotional person, and understanding what Pluto and Capricorn has been trying to teach us since 2008, well, Pluto and Aquarius could be very hard for some people. Okay. So the emotional resilience that we've been getting during this training, I'm going to call it training from Pluto and Capricorn, is very important. It's actually been teaching people a lot about their personal moon archetype, and I'm not sure if people are aware of that or not. And so that's going to be a part of my lecture that I see. It's through my lens that I'm seeing this really important and how we show up in relationships, especially because we are having the node switch, yay, I'm so ready, into Aries and Libra on July 17th of this year, 2023, so in a couple weeks. And again, that is a part of the cardinal axis. And so Cancer, again, is a major loud theme as we're finishing up Pluto in Capricorn, getting more previews of Pluto in Aquarius, and then also having the node shift into Aries and Libra. So third thing is I'm going to be doing half off of my astrology readings until the end of summer. And then I'm going to do it again in October and November, December. So I'll have like a time off in September because I'm sure I'll be booked up. So I'll give myself like a month to relax, but because of my grandfather passing, I decided to do half off astrology readings for people. So you can go to my website, you can book right off my calendar right there. And when you go to checkout, just enter the discount code half moon. I'll write that in the description below. I also have gift certificates available. So if you know somebody who would like an astrology reading as well, you can use the code half off and give them a birthday gift or an early Christmas gift or just a gift or whatever. So, or let your friends know, let your friends know. There has also been 3 separate TikTok accounts that are using my content, and it's not me. And they're asking for donations. And I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you and ask you for a donation. I will never reach out to you saying, I have this thing to tell you. I have this download for you. I have this message, beloved. I don't talk like that. You guys know, you follow my channel, like I don't talk like that. So there's the Scenic Route Astrology 1, the Scenic Route Astrology 2, and Scenic Route Astrology _ those 3 accounts on TikTok are not mine. When you find Scenic Route Astrology on TikTok, it has my website and it says I do not do DMs, something like that in my bio. That is the real one. So that's annoying, but I know it's happening to a lot of spiritual leaders. I just hope that nobody is paying them or giving them any money because that's what they're asking for. And then the final thing is I still have my Oracle deck for sale and limited availability left because the Sacral Chakra Oracle deck is not going to be republished. But I do have some left, and if you're interested in getting one of these, I consider it to be like a collectible item now. Not collectible, what's the word? I'm forgetting the word right now. Anyway, because it's not going to be republished, it's like super special, honestly. Really beautiful deck, really amazing deck. I hope Brittany's having a great time in Thailand. The woman who I wrote the deck with. But yeah, we only have a limited availability left, so that's still for sale. You can buy it off my website. And that's it. That's all I got right now. I'm still working on the new Oracle deck, and that probably won't be published until early next year because that's taken a lot of my time. But yeah, let's just dive into this full moon because it's really cool, actually. So, the first thing that I want to say before I get into the chart work is that I was looking at the transits of this full moon, and I honestly, the last week and a half, I have not paid attention to the transits. I usually put up a daily on my TikTok, and I've been grieving. I've been with my family. I've been spending a lot of time with my grandmother. I haven't looked at, my Astro Gold or my Luna astrology apps. I just really have just been going through the emotions. And but I did know, overall, I'm pretty general, the moon changes sign every couple of days, and I have a moon app. I get notifications for that, but generally the planets are in the sign for a couple of weeks, right? So generally what's going on. So I knew this Mercury Sun conjunction was coming up, which happened 2 days ago in Cancer. But other than that, I didn't really pay much attention to everything except for just living life. And I noticed that there has been a lot of information coming in, but it's like connected to deep emotions, right? My papa passing is significant. Mercury is, the archetype that can go between all of the realms. He's this like swifty little god, that just has like the ability to go into heaven, to go into the earthly plane, to go back into hell. Papa is going to heaven. So I've been getting like a lot of like emotions coming in, that feels like it's transitioning through all of those layers, like deep loss, deep grief, and then high euphoric moments, like reclaiming memories, especially from my childhood, navigating through that, meeting up with certain people in my family that I haven't talked to in like 10 years, like um and because of, certain family dynamics and traumas and stuff, right? And so part of those things have come in. I also was cleaning up my office, and I've just been doing like a lot of mercurial stuff in the home, right? Mercury and Cancer. So like organizing my papers, like throwing away papers that I don't need anymore, files, packing up stuff, I'm going to be painting pretty soon, just lots and lots of stuff at home. And I found some old letters that I wrote like a couple of years ago, that I reread, and sometimes you just write letters to yourself or to somebody and you don't give them, but you have them. Well, I was reading them again, and I got very emotional, um, looking through this content and this material. And but I also realized like how ridiculously intelligent I am, and how emotionally resilient I had become, and this is 3 years ago me. This isn't me now, right? And I actually was quite impressed by these letters that I had wrote that I had never given to this person, but it showed a real depth of emotional maturity that I had achieved at that point in my life, and in this ability to be really objective in my emotional context, which was something that I was never really good at growing up. I was very emotional, but reactive over that, instead of, learning about patience and taking some time, right? And the reason why I'm talking about this is because these are Capricornian themes. Okay. This is themes around this full moon and what's been going on for this week, and what the transits are asking us to look at. Okay. Because right now, the axis of Cancer and Capricorn in our astrology charts are being illuminated, and they're being asked to be taken a look at in a deeper lens. Okay. We've got Pluto retrograde in Capricorn. It's not done there. We've got the Sun and Mercury in Capricorn, and Juno, I'm sorry, in Cancer, and Juno in Cancer. And we've got this full moon. The moon is in Capricorn right now as I'm recording this on July 2nd. We've got the full moon in Capricorn, okay? And so there is a dynamic here where, looking at how far we've come and the time frame of it, because these are Capricornian themes: time, right? Karma, longevity, the long haul, fortitude of the long haul, emotional resistance. We're having to look at this at this point, right? It's going to be illuminated, and it's an extremely important full moon. I mean, they're all important. This is why my main thing that I do on YouTube is the lunations, because I am all about the moon. I think that the moon is the best way to track how we're doing in life, essentially. The easiest but most complex thing to do when we're looking at our natal chart. And when I work with my clients, like, I am always looking at your lunation transits. I'm looking at your progressed moon. I'm looking at where you are emotionally, because where you are emotionally is going to be where you are manifesting and everything else inside of your life. And this is a part of this full moon as well. Okay. This is why I'm so lunar oriented in my astrology practice. And I mean, good Lord, like, evolutionary astrology works with the nodes of the moon. It is a lunar type of astrology. Yes, it's Plutonian, but it's also extremely lunar, So Pluto is the base, right? It's the base, but Pluto is the depth of our emotions, right? And then we experience in our 3D plane and here in reality, we're dealing with the moon and the nodes, right? So we don't always know what the Pluto stuff's going on because it's unconscious, but we definitely will know what the hell's going on with our moon because it's going to be right there, right front and center. So let me bring up the chart because the more I can navigate around the chart with you, the more this is going to make sense. And then you can also see what I'm talking about and bring it up with your chart. By the way, if you don't have your natal chart, you can get it for free on astro.com. Or if you're ready for an astrology app, you can do lunaastrology.com. You can use my code Makayla for a 10% discount, and you can cancel at any time. So if you decide that you don't like it, you can cancel. But it's a, how do I do this? Sorry. Okay. Oh, geez. I'm screen sharing, but where's my video? Okay, there we go. I got it. Sorry, guys. Okay, so here's the Capricorn full moon. I casted this for East Coast time. Obviously, I'm still in Providence, so 7:37 and 32 seconds a.m. Depending on where you are, just cast it for your time zone. But you're gonna want to see the moon at 11 degrees of Capricorn in 18 minutes. Okay, that's what's gonna be going on there. So so here we are talking about our emotions, of course, because Capricorn and Cancer deals with that. It deals with our emotional access. But it's also an important axis because if you think about it, when we look at the natal chart, right, the rising sign, right, this goes for any chart, right, the rising sign, the IC, the bottom of the chart, the fourth house cusp, right, the seventh house cusp, and the 10th house cusp, right, those are always really significant. Why are they significant? Because they are like the pillars of life that people only care about when they come for a reading, right? It's like me, right? Where's my direction, right? Like somebody comes for a tarot astrology reading, they're like, okay, I want to know about my direction and me, right? My first house, or they want to know about their home life, right? And their family, what's going on with their family, right? That's going to be the fourth house cusp, or they want to know about relationships, right? Or the health too. The health can be down here in the fourth as well, because it's like your emotional health and your wellness and your family health. They want to know about relationships as well, seventh house, right? Or they want to know about career direction, right? It's 10th house. So here we've got the full moon really activating, Saturn themes. So for you in your natal chart, you're going to want to look at where the cusp of Capricorn is, right? Where that full moon is, that 11-degree full moon. And you also want to know where the Saturn is in your natal chart. And you also want to take into account the 10th house in your natal chart. Now, of course, if this is like too advanced for you and you're like, what the hell, Makayla, I don't know, just ignore that for now. Okay, I'm just giving you direction to, if you're new to astrology, to kind of start picking up little bits and pieces and themes. And when I began, I was like all over the place too. I was extracting knowledge in bits and pieces and trying to interpret things and layer things. And you will that's kind of how you learn astrology, is you slowly start doing that, and you begin to have these aha moments. They're like, oh, okay, I see that connection. Oh, I can see that connection. Oh, that totally makes sense, right? You'll have it over and over and over again, and it will start to expand your knowledge even more, and you'll begin to start to read the charts and understand astrology way quicker, faster. You'll become a master, right? Capricornian themes. It's just going to take a little bit of hard work and effort when it becomes to learning that. And honestly, those aha moments never stop. Like that's going to be a lifelong thing. You're just going to have, more knowledge under your belt as you continue to study astrology. So, that's going to be important to look at when it comes to your natal chart. But you also want to consider, and what we're going to consider for the sake of this full moon is the transiting Saturn. Okay, the transiting Saturn, which is in Pisces, because the moon is ruling Saturn in this chart. Okay, and there's some themes coming up that I see that are really, really important when it comes to understanding and us reflecting at this point in time under this lunation, basically asking yourself the major question: where am I at in my timeline? Okay, where am I at? And if you can take a moment to think about where you want to go, how you want to make your money, where do you want to put work and effort and time into? Is that more time and effort into a job or a career choice? Is that more time and effort into creating more stability in your life when it comes to maybe your home life or building a business, building a relationship, maybe more time with family? Maybe that is changing up your whole life path and going back to school. You want to really reflect on this lunation, where you're at this timeline. And it's not from a judgmental approach, which can definitely be a Capricornian term, right? Being judgmental. It's more about looking back at how far you've come and being proud of it, right? There's this retrieval of the past, this nostalgia that came with this last week for us to bring up, dig up, and reflect on, which is also a full moon thing. Reflect on, illuminate how far you've come, which then can allow you to take in the whole perspective and the whole picture of like where you're headed and where you've been, right? And then you can adjust, and you can definitely give yourself a pat on the back, no matter where you are in your journey, even if you're not exactly where you thought you should be yet. Under this lunation, it's more about having like a congratulations for being so awesome, for getting this far. Okay, now we're going to start to the next part of the journey, right? We're going to continue going forward. And it's because Mercury in Cancer here does bring up the retrieval of those memories, of this nostalgia, of that information coming in, of old letters, of old documents coming in, of memories. Okay, these are mercurial things, but in that Cancer realm, it's emotional. It's ancestral. It's your ancestral roots. It's going back to that nostalgia that I said earlier. Going back to the memory and the emotional memory, because water holds memory. Okay, and it's in a water sign. And we just had this Mercury Sun Kazemi. Okay, that means a conjunction where Mercury essentially just got rebirthed by the sun, and there's this cleansing of that, almost, right? This burning, this cleansing. Think of it like water boiling, like purifying the water, because the heat of the sun with the watery element of Cancer, this purification, if you will, of the mind, of both the left and the right brain, right? Both the intellectual part of our brain that we have, but then also the emotional side of our brain too. We got this beautiful moment the last couple of days, and the conjunction is still very tight under this lunation, under this full moon, where we get to really reflect on that, but then Mercury also gets to carry forward a new plan. Okay, as it's moving away from the sun, it planted a seed, right? So this is a great actual lunation to do a bit of like releasing and a bit of reflection, but mostly, to me, integration of where you've come from and like what adjustments like you might want to be making, and integrate that into the birthing of the Mercurial realm, of the Sun Mercury conjunction, where you can create a new plan, right? You can decide to make a contract with yourself, right? About how you're going to go forward, like how you're going to support yourself going forward, right? and combining both the left side and the right side of the brain and taking them together and being like, okay, this is going to take me a bit of hard work to get to the next level that I'm trying to achieve, but it's quite possible, right? It's quite possible. And I can do that. And how do I know I can do that? Because I just did that when I look back at how far I've come, right? You've become a master in some sense, in some area of your life, because Saturn just doesn't come through your chart and just not teach you anything. It just, whether you're aware of it or not, this is a time to become aware of it if you're not aware of how much Saturn has been teaching you, and just to give you some direction, Saturn was in Capricorn 2017, 18-ish timeframe. That's when I began my Saturn return, and Pluto was in Capricorn, right? And so we began to learn about emotional resilience and emotional maturity. And then it went into Aquarius, and then we had to work on a dream and a vision, right? And how we can now separate ourselves from authority or essentially boundaries that kept us from growing. We had these traumatic experiences and events that allowed us to break free from these emotional conditioning dynamics that don't serve us, that aren't healthy for us to go forward. And now Saturn in Pisces is really dissolving that kind of archetype and asking us to devote ourselves to, a spiritual purpose, a spiritual part of ourselves, a dream, a vision, something that's really inspirational. And there's also a dynamic of Saturn wrapping up a whole entire 30-year cycle of understanding that we've been through a lot in our personal lives and we've learned a lot. And there's also an element of being able to distribute and share that mastery when we put Saturn in Pisces, okay? Because when we reach the Pisces section of our chart, where we reach the 12th house of our chart, it's where we cannot control anything, right? Like Saturn is going to try to control something in Pisces, but the thing is that emotional nature and that emotional realm of Pisces, it's beyond our control. That's where the universe has to take over. And we have to literally go with the flow, essentially. And how we can best use Piscean realms is we can decide that we're going to do something that's selfless, right? It's something like share, like for me, for instance, like sharing the hard emotions that I go through loss and figuring it out a way to help and inspire and share it with others and use it as a gift of connection that does nothing for me at all. Like I do free medium readings, for instance, for people. I don't ask for payment for them. I have one scheduled this week coming up with a group of other mediums, and we don't ask for anything. We do it because it's a selfless act for us, and it's a way to help other people, and I can thank my teacher, Tom, for navigating that for everybody and being a part of that type of project, right? So anyway, we'll get back. So one of the first questions is where am I at on my timeline, right? And making sure that you give yourself um some type of congratulations for the hard work that you've put in up until this point, to surviving and thriving, really, and like really challenging times. Okay. And so the next thing I want you to consider under this lunation is to ask yourself, where can I push for growth to stand in my power? Okay. And this is because the moon is forming a trine to Jupiter up here. Okay. And moon trine Jupiter is a supportive act. And we always look at the hard stuff in charts, right? And I actually really have to give a credit to my friend Vanessa Montgomery, who's a Sagittarius with the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. And she's a horoscope columnist for Glamour magazine, and she just put out an article on the Pluto and Libra generation for the astrologers of AFF or something for Australia, because she's out in Australia. And she mentioned in this article, we often don't talk about the nice aspects, and we should, because they're nice and you can miss them because they're nice, right? You can miss the opportunities because they're easy and they can slip by, right? And you take them for granted, essentially. And I just was like, whew, like that was like a refreshing moment under a really hard, heavy week, that I got as a download from her, right, from her article. And when I saw this lunation, I was like, oh my God, like the moon trine Jupiter here. We have a heavy moon, right? A full moon in Capricorn is a heavy type of energy. And if you've been feeling tired Sunday, Monday, even Saturday, if you've been feeling tired this weekend, that's really normal, because we're being weighed down by Saturn, essentially, right? This weight is coming down on us. But with Jupiter, it's like wanting us to expand our boundaries, and it's actually giving you an opportunity, like the full moon is illuminating where you've crystallized boundaries because it was a protective mechanism at one point, right? And you needed that protection at one point. But now Jupiter is like, push it a little bit more, like make the boundary a little bit farther out so that you can grow, so that you can expand, so that you can have more. Okay. And of course, you want to take in consideration what's comfortable for you, what's not comfortable for you, but you don't want to jeopardize it if it's going to affect your safety, of course, right? I would never tell somebody to push their boundaries if your safety is at risk here. But there's also this dynamic that we've got the asteroid Hecate as a part of this lunation. And if you have not worked with the asteroid Hecate, I think she's a really interesting asteroid to work with. And this was a deity that actually came to me before I even started astrology. So when I saw her in this lunation, I thought that was really interesting, because when I began my spiritual journey, I just Hecate came to me. I really forget what it was. I think it was like through some podcast or something, and she was just screaming at me. And so I started learning about Hecate, right? And I have a book here and I did some reading. This is Hecate Keeping Her Keys. Okay. And I did some reading again on her before I started this video, because the whole dynamic of this lunation that I realized before I even looked at the asteroids, before I even saw Hecate was evolved, was I was like, this lunation means this is the changing of the guards. Okay. This is a full moon where you have hired some guards to protect your land, and their shift is up, and now you've got some new ones coming in, and they've got a different personality than the ones that you've been working with. Okay, like the guards that you've had are retired, they're not coming back, and you're having some new ones coming in to work for you now to protect your land, if you will, right? Think of it like that. And the old ones are just, they're not coming back anymore. And when we think about it, whenever we change house cusps, whenever a planet goes into a different house, or whenever a planet changes a different sign, right, we're going through a threshold, and we're actually having a Saturn and Capricorn experience, because we're crossing the boundary into a new threshold. Okay, and this is actually what's happening right now in astrology transits, right? Is that energetically we are all on a very slower pace, transitioning through this major threshold, and we're changing the guards. The guards are changing. Okay, we're leaving Pluto and Capricorn and we're going into Pluto and Aquarius, and we're not going to see Pluto and Capricorn again in our life. So we're switching it up, right? And Hecate here is at 26 degrees of Cancer, and Hecate is opposing Pluto at 29 degrees of Capricorn retrograde. Okay, and like let's not forget too that Pluto is also sextile Neptune that just moved retrograde this month. So And in the middle of that is a yod with Venus and Mars and Leo, right? It's a beautiful yod in the sky that we've got going on. Neptune, Pluto retrograde, and then with this apex point right here is Venus and Mars and Leo. And then if you want to include this as a kite, it's shooting out over here into Hygeia in Aquarius. And so what we've got going on is a dissolving nature, because Pluto sextile Neptune is an easier aspect of dissolving things and of letting go of things and of transforming like the stability and the structures that we've put in. That you can see this culturally. You can see this like happy birthday United States. This is the 4th of July weekend, birthday, you know, and you see how those things are going on. But there's just dynamic of things dissolving and changing up, and the dreams are shifting, okay, as well. And if you go into my Venus star point video, I do talk about you getting struck by a different type of love or something that you didn't expect to fall in love with coming up, right? When we have the Venus star point coming up, which is really, really interesting, because right now there's it's like this lunation is prepping us for that Venus star point in Leo, which is going to happen right where that Venus and Mars is right now. Okay. This lunation is like, okay, where have we put, you know, time, skill, and effort into, but it's crumbling, it's not working anymore, you know, there's some hardship going on, there's some pressure going on, but Pluto wants to dissolve it and destroy it. Wherever we've got Pluto transiting in the chart, it's always difficult because it's erupting the unconscious realms and dynamics of our psyche, and it's asking for it to change and to shift. And we've got Hecate here opposite Pluto. Well, Hecate as a deity, if you don't work with her and you don't know much about her, she's an ancient goddess. She's an ancient deity, actually. Even the Egyptians worked with her. And she was known as the mother maiden and the crone archetype. And she was also known to have the keys and the gates to hell. And also she helped souls travel after death, right? After they died. Now, we can see this is pretty interesting because my grandfather's funeral is tomorrow, and I'm sure Hecate is going to be there to help him navigate to the other worlds. She's not a vicious deity or anything like that, although that you don't want to mess with her essentially when you work with her, because she is extremely powerful. But she's respected in the sense that she represented, you know, the archetype of the soul of the world, because she had this ability to lead you and could see in all directions. All right, she had the ability to see in all the directions that she needed to see in, and to be able to transition, just like Mercury, into all the dimensions and the levels of life and the afterlife, and the godly realm. Okay. And also she was buddies with Mercury and Hermes in her ancient myth too, which I thought was interesting because Mercury is also with her in Cancer. Okay, so we have this dynamic where Hecate is, you know, opposing Pluto here in Capricorn, and she is being like, okay, like who are you giving the keys over to next? You know, how far have you come? You know, where do you want to push your boundaries a little bit, or where do you want to reclaim a little bit more maturity and responsibility in your life? You know, because you've done the work prior, now, you know, you're ready for the next level. You're ready to go into the next threshold. You're ready to, you know, integrate these new thoughts and feelings and dynamics that you've got perhaps with the sun and Mercury conjunction in Cancer. You're ready to integrate that and create new opportunity, right? That Jupiter new opportunity into where you're going forward. And I wanted to read you something from also Howard Supportis, The Change of the Gods book. If you don't have this book, it is amazing. Really, really good book. And I wanted to read you something about Pluto and Neptune, and also Pluto and Saturn. And I want to read the Pluto and Saturn part because Pluto is in Saturn realm. It's in Capricorn, right? So it's important for us to understand as we're having our last months of this, and we'll have a short time frame next year. Pluto will go retrograde again into Capricorn next year. It's really important when planets are at the last degrees of a sign and they're finishing up, especially the outer planets, they're finishing up their time. It's the finality, right? It's the final lessons. It's like, take a good hard look at this because you're not going to be here again. Okay, you're not going to be here again. So really like squeeze out the juice from this section that you need so you can go forward, right? And keep evolving and stuff. But like, don't miss this opportunity, okay? So it's here right now for a reason for you. So it's like, let's not, I know a lot of people, a lot of astrologers have been super excited and super ready for Pluto and Aquarius. And I really did love that little boost that we got the couple of months when Pluto dipped into Aquarius, especially for the air signs. I felt like we were like, oh my God, like we just felt lifted, but we've got a little bit more work to do in the Capricorn realm. And so I think it's really important we understand this, okay? So on page 242, Pluto transits. In order to understand the effects transiting Pluto has on Saturn, or Pluto in Saturn realm, we have to remind ourselves about the nature of Saturn in the chart. In general, Saturn shows our weak spots, those spheres of life in which we are insecure, vulnerable, and easily wounded. We all worry about something, whether we are lovable enough, pretty enough, masculine enough, smart enough, etc. Saturn reveals where we are afraid to be seen as stupid, ugly, inadequate, or inept. And so there's an element as well with this lunation of, with the changing of the guard, of the full moon illuminating our insecurities, like do I know enough, for instance, right? Just for instance, like how I'm doing this talk in October, I do feel confident in the fact that I'm doing this speech, but at one point, because this lunation is happening in my third house, and I've been dying to finish this moon course for everybody. It's also been highlighting the third house realm of me, right? The teaching, the coursework, the education, having students and so forth. Speaking has always been something I've had to work on because I have Mercury square Saturn in my natal chart, right? So it's something I've had to push my boundaries on, push out of my comfort zone with. And so under this lunation, it's not a bad thing to feel these things. It's actually good to acknowledge if you might feel insecure in some way. But the thing is Jupiter trying this is like pushing you to expand on those boundaries, right? To take some emotional responsibility for yourself and to kind of take a chance, right? Really take a chance on yourself. Take a chance on pushing through those fears, if you will. And Jupiter can really highlight that in Taurus because it's about pushing through with your own personal assets and realizing your own self-worth. Taurus is not just material worth, it's self-worth, it's emotional self-worth. It's I'm resilient, I can do this, I'm stubborn, I'm worth it, I'm good at this, right? And so there's this aspect of this lunation that's heavy. It can be heavy, but it's more so because it's giving you this solid foundation for you to build upon, right? This lunation to be like, wow, this is where you're at. You're super awesome. This is where you're at right now. Now you can go even further. Like, let's keep going upward. Let's keep going up that hill, right? Climbing the hill, that Capricorn archetype, if you will. And with the Pluto in Capricorn sextile the Neptune at 27 degrees Pisces. it's ushering in that dream and that inspiration, right? It's being like, well, you can really transform through that dream, right? That dedication to what it is that you want to do and put that work towards, okay? And the yod is pointing to that Venus and Mars in Leo, which is all about those personal planets right now, highlighting your self-expression, your creative purpose, right? Your actual purpose in the world, like what lights you up, what makes your heart happy, right? Mars and Venus and Leo, what makes you excited and inspired to be bold and to be you and to express who you are, so there's this beautiful element under this lunation where it's really like a building block to the next, it's a stepping stone to me to the next direction of your life. Okay, but I'm going to keep going. So gaining mastery and security in Saturn's domain takes time, and until we do achieve this, if ever, which you will, many of us will attempt to hide or deny where we feel weak and vulnerable. As a way of protecting ourselves against hurt, we erect defenses in those areas. I want to stop at that for a minute because Capricorn is also a defense mechanism. And again, to highlight the Hecate here, and also um, Pluto is square Chiron, and the full moon is also square Chiron. And so there's also this dynamic of when we hit squares, there is a growth aspect involved, right? It's hard because you don't really know what you're jumping into or what you're growing towards sometimes because you haven't been there yet and it's new territory and it's a push. It's something that you have to push through with a square. Well, this lunation is also squaring that Chiron where we're being asked to validate the part of ourselves, the independent and individual part of our nature that needs to be reclaimed. Okay. And we can be a little bit insecure. And, Chiron in Aries is there's a wounding around who I am, showing up for who you are, right? The individual self-expression, and there's a rawness with Aries expression and Chiron and Aries. And there's a deep vulnerability within Aries too, because it's like it's just such fresh, naive energy in an essence. And so you might feel really, really confident in who you are on an inner layer, but then when it comes to showing up and doing that, it takes some courage and some bravery, right? To not feel um defensive over who you are, right? Just being willing to express yourself and not care about what other people think or what they're gonna judge you on, okay? To release the judgment as well, because full moons do ask us to release. So there's an element of us releasing our own judgments against ourselves under this lunation, right? Judgment Capricorn. Da, 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 da. So okay, so yeah, so you don't need to necessarily protect yourself from yourself, We don't enjoy having our weaknesses and inadequacies exposed, so we carefully tried to avoid any situations which could trigger them. And triggering is definitely a Chiron thing. So is an Eris in Aries. We put on a good show, doing our best to appear fulfilled, happy, attractive, intelligent, or whatever. Such endeavors to conceal our pain and insecurities could succeed for a while, but when transiting Pluto aspect Saturn, our defenses will be challenged and we may be forced to face what we are most afraid of looking at in ourselves. Saturn builds barriers. Pluto, however, tears them down. And you can see that there's a lot of barriers being torn down in the political landscape, right? In the bigger landscapes of the world, in the collective conscious wars and leaders, banking situations, and all that, which we won't get, political, because I really wanted this to be an emotional experience for us individuals while we're looking at this lunation. And so there is that element of Pluto in Capricorn with this lunation right before the nodes are going to switch, because we're at the final degrees, final 2 degrees of these nodes in Scorpio and Taurus, where, eventually those fears are going to be challenged. And so what I've learned also with Pluto dynamics, when you're having Pluto transits to your chart, is to work and to lean into what Pluto wants you to learn. And it. Like, there's another thing is, like, you can intuitively pretty much have an idea of what's going on. You might not necessarily have the whole picture, and you don't need to, but there's usually a tingling, an idea underneath, where that there's some internal change that needs to happen. And if you resist and you resist and you resist because you're trying to protect yourself, and it's not right for you, and you haven't taken any steps to try to change said challenges, that's when Pluto comes in and causes the, catastrophic events. And this isn't to scare anybody or anything like that. Ultimately, if you're watching astrology YouTube and you're looking at your chart and you're contemplating and doing some meditation work on it, you're doing the work, right? It's when people are completely blind to what's going on, and that's usually not the case with those people who are, using tools like astrology to work on themselves. It's usually the people who are completely ignorant, right? And if you're considering these dynamics, you're not ignorant, because ignorant people aren't considering these dynamics, right? So, but that's when you'll see catastrophic events take over people. And essentially, when Hecate gives the keys over to the next guardsmanship that's going on, it might not be to heaven. It might be the keys to hell instead, right? So it's like, where do you want to go on this lunation? Do you want to, like, the keys to, like, the happy heaven realm, or do you want the keys to hell? I don't know. It's up to you. It's your choice, free will, essentially. Um, and so, yeah, this has been a lot, but these are the highlights I was looking at with the chart. Of course, I've got a lot of stuff going on. I will always look at it. Another thing is, like, talked about, is that kite going over to Hygeia here. Well, that's like representing the health area. And collectively, I do see Hygeia wanting the health, the betterment overall for humanity, but then also in our own chart, it's like, well, what's the health for your creative self-expression and your individuality and your vision and where you're going forward in the dream, and being a little bit more objective under this lunation too, I think is important, because you really want to reflect again on the time that you have spent on yourself, and give yourself a pat on the back, that is a launching pad into the next dimension of your life, right? Into the next chapter of your life. July 17th, we're getting those nodes shifting into Aries and Libra. And so we've got another 18-month cycle being shifted that's going to be really important, and really instrumental when Pluto goes back into Aquarius. So other than that, we've still got Pluto square the nodes. I've talked about it, like, in pretty much every lunation video, and essentially it is the same theme, and we've talked about it in a few different ways. But if you're new to my channel, I will revisit it, because it is important that essentially we are looking at the dynamics within our emotional realm, that things that we have needed to psychologically and emotionally process on a very deep level, and release them and let them go and transform them, and do this, like, phoenix rising, if you will, through that section of your chart, where you have experienced betrayal or trust issues, right? Or psychological wounding and emotional wounding, these really deep emotions that have been being asked to purge, right? To come up, to dig up, and to work with, to purify that water, if you will. Like, Scorpio can be like swampy type of water. I'm sorry, Scorpios, I love you. I have Pluto and Scorpio. I can, in the first house. But it can be a lot of murky water, murky terrain, right? And so essentially we've been being asked to purify it with this square right here by Pluto, right? And transform it, transform our wounds, transform our pain that we all carry in some degree. even if it's ancestral, you know, even if you've had a pretty good life and stuff, and say, oh, well, Makayla, I don't really have pain. Well, maybe there's something emotionally within you, or maybe it's not you, maybe it's people around you, and you've been having to play, you know, therapist with family and friends, right? And to help them navigate through their emotional terrain as well. That could also be something that's been digging up for some people. And move into that north node, right? Move into the self-resilience, self-reliance, um, understanding essentially that you are the asset. You know, it's not what you own, it's actually the fact that you yourself, your body and your soul, and how you value yourself, and your ability to be self-reliant, where it comes to like either self-reliant physically or emotionally or mentally, that you are that tool, right, that's going to carry you forward. And that, you know, merging with other people and other things, yes, it is a part of life, and I'm not going to say it's a negative part of life. It's just about learning to navigate who and what you can trust, and who and what you want to merge with, and essentially learning from that and being able to carry that forward and take it within your own nature, as you being a human being, and realizing that you are your own asset and you are self-reliant no matter what. And that is the power. That's the true power right there. So that being said, if you have not yet, please give me a like or subscribe to my channel. If you have not subscribed yet, please give me a subscribe. Feel free to find me on any of my social media, Scenic Root Astrology on TikTok, Instagram. You can book a reading with me right off my website on either of those, or scenicrootastrology.com. And yeah, I hope everybody has a good holiday weekend and a good full moon in Capricorn. And I will talk to you again soon. Okay, take care.